So yeah, we are going to talk about total queries and see what they are and how they're different from the queries that we worked on so far. Within the next few sessions, we'll try to practice more a little bit on total queries. And then next week, like maybe like a few sessions on different like data sets. And then after that, basically on the Monday after that, which I think is like October 8th, is your midterm exam, which is basically completely based on access query design. So you want to like start like preparing for the midterm exam. We will have one more homework before the midterm exam, which will cover this like total query and what we discussed in this section. Once like so only like a week left, week in like 10 days maybe to the midterm exam, so keep in mind. What is a total query? Okay, let's see. So far we talked about like the queries that we've asked to like list results for different criteria, different like different sort of tables. Like let's say we talk about, hey, list the reservations for customers. List the reservations that are made for each bike. Show me like the reservations that were placed before that specific date. So we look at the table records and like we might like only filter them for particular criteria or just list them for like to show you some, display some information to get an understanding of what we have in the tables. And due to that link that we created between the tables, we can get more information about like each record. Like we can see customers reservations. We get this like query that connects the two tables and like pulls data from each table and creates that output table for us. But now we want to talk about total queries. In total queries, the difference is that we want to summarize the results. We want to summarize the results based on like a specific group or a specific category or categories. In this case, we look at multiple records at the same time. So we try to like look at the data, place it into specific categories, and then in each category, try to look at like the records that belong to that category. And then perform some type of aggregation. That could be like let's say taking an average, taking like finding the minimum, finding the maximum, counting the number of records. So some type of aggregation on a specific categories or groups. Let's look at this example. Okay, so I have a table that shows me like it's the loan table. So I have a table like each record shows me the loan ID, like that a unique like loan, the customer who like this loan belongs to, the book ID, which basically what was the like the book that was rented, and then final fee. Okay, so it's the loan table. Now let's look at the second table. What is the difference here? What is the difference? The difference here is that now actually we are seeing only two things. We are seeing the member ID and then we are seeing the like result of something, which is the total fees. So what we are seeing here is that for each member, we are seeing total fee. How did we get that output? How did we like produce the output table looking at this? In tell me. One by one, like in the member ID column, right? One by one, shows one ID at a time, and then looks at all the records in the table to find like how many other records we have for that like member ID. And then what we did, we wanted total fees, right? So summing up the total fees for that specific member. That's how we did it. So we had a group, we had a category that we needed to look at, and then perform some type of aggregation. What was it? We're summing up total fees for each member. How much they've paid so far. That member, how much they've paid. Then Now we can see it here for each member, we are saying total fee, right? So that's the difference between just like viewing the results, reading the list, and also like a query that basically creates a result that is a summary of the current data, and like looks at every time, looks at multiple records in a table, try to like do some type of calculation, whether it's like taking average, finding a minimum, finding maximum, counting the records. This is what we call a total query, or this is the result of a total query, because this is the output table, it's not the query itself. This shows us a result of a total query, which identify the group, like shows us a group, and then shows us the result of the aggregation. The group is like the members, member ID. Like for each member, we're able to see what is the total fee. So that's what we mean by total query, that summarizes the results, and also it groups rows into categories, Let's compare them next to each other. Like when we had kind of like the queries that we worked on so far versus like in this slide, we want to compare them next to each other. The total query example versus the regular query example. Here I have some of the queries that probably we worked on. Which, for example, show reservations for all customers. Display for each customer the reserved bike information. So what we are doing here, we are like showing listing all the reservations for a customer. Okay, display for each customer reserved bike information. For all the reservations the customer made, we are like displaying the bikes that they reserved. For each customer, like which customers rented mountain bikes. I'm gonna look at the reservation table. I'm gonna look at the bike table to find out which bike is a mountain bike, and then find out which customers rented that bike and list them. I'm not doing any, I'm not summarizing anything, or like summarizing the set of results. I'm just like showing the results, but filtering them. Summarizing with filtering is a different thing. Filtering is like you filter the results, like let's say based on a specific value. You say show me only the mountain bikes. You're just like saying when the bike type is mountain bike. So you're filtering the results, but you're not summarizing them. When you're summarizing, you're looking at multiple records and trying to do some type of aggregation. Now, let's see the examples on here. For example, calculate total revenue per customer. Find the average rental cost per bike type. Count how many reservations each customer has. What do you see here that is now different from the other queries? Do you see some things that now appear that we haven't worked on in the prior queries? Now we have to do some calculation, or some aggregation calculation. What is that? For example, for each customer, we want to calculate their total revenue. How can I calculate the total revenue based on the the records I have in the table? I have to look at the table, for example, the reservation table, and see this customer, what was the revenue for the customer in each reservation. And then for each one of them, sum up those revenues, or how much we made from each reservation, sum them up, and then I will have one total value for each customer. So I have to look at multiple records, get the revenue for each reservation, and then add them up to be able to calculate total revenue for a customer. I'm categorizing the results, or grouping the results for each customer based on the customer, and then for each customer I'm trying to do some summarizing the results based on, hey, give me the total revenue. In order to calculate the total revenue, I have to add revenue for each reservation so I can have the total revenue. Find the average rental cost per bike type. find the average rental cost by per like bike type. So if I have the bike type, I have the like how like in each reservation, what was the rental cost? I can, for that particular, for each one of these bike types, I take the average, and that's when I will have the average total cost. Example, I think we have the data set. I should have added, I think I had it like here. Let me show it. I should have added there too. Okay, so I have the bikes and I have the total cost. If I want to calculate for each bike what is the average total cost, I want to find like one by one. Let's say I'm working on this specific bike. Okay, one by one, I need to look at each bike and say what is the average total cost. I have this bike ID here. I also have it here. What is the average total cost between them? And that will tell me what is the average total cost for that specific bike. So I need to look at multiple records in the table and do a calculation on each, like on multiple records in the table. Take the average between them. Let's go back here. Count how many reservations we have for each customer. I look at the reservation table and see that like I have like each record indicates a reservation, and customer ID is a foreign key in the reservation table. So I can look at it and then count for each individual, for each prime, like for each key, I can count how many reservations exist in that table. How many reservations exist in that table? Here, how many reservations do we have for a customer with primary key 501, like with the key 504 in this table? How many reservations do we have for customer with customer ID 504? Based on what I see here, I only have one record in that table. I counted them. I looked at the reservation table, one every record, and counted them. How about 501? Let's count them. I have one reservation here. I have one reservation here. Two reservations. I have one reservation here. Three. So for that specific customer, I have three reservations. This is the difference. Now we are looking at multiple records in the table. And then for each category, in this case, we are looking at for each customer, counting the records in the table that exists for that customer or linked to that customer. So counted the records, and I can say for that customer, how many records I have? I have like three records, or basically I have three reservations. What do you see in common among like the total queries? What is being repeated? If we like look at the total queries next to each other, we'll find some pattern. What is the pattern? First, we see a calculation. In each query, we see a calculation, right? Okay, calculate total cost, total revenue, average rental cost, count how many reservations, determine maximum rental duration. So there is some type of summarization here. There is some type of aggregation here. We are doing some type of calculation. What is the other pattern we identify? Like every time we are doing that calculation for a specific group, based on a specific group or on a specific group. So per customer, or for each bike type, or for each city, for each month. If you have them, you're kind of like dealing with a specific group, and you're doing that calculation for a specific group. For each month, what is the total number of reservations? Look at the months and then count the records that exist in the reservation table belong for that month, that were placed in that month. So I have to count the records in the table. That's the pattern that we will like, it will help us to identify and distinguish whether it's a regular query or a total query. So with every total query, these two component exist with every total query. Group by, that's the one, that category that you're going to use as a group. Group by member, group by genre, group by month, group by state, group by class. And then we have another part, aggregation part. The part that we are doing for each group, what is the calculation that you're going to do? Take the average, average values. Take the sum, total money, total revenue, total cost, total money is spent. So summing up the records. Counting the records exists in the table linked to that particular group. Min and max. What is the minimum? What is the maximum? What is the minimum? Minimum number of hours a bike has been rented. I have to look at the reservation table, how many hours they've been rented, find the one that is the minimum. So these are two parts with every total query. If you look at it, you should be able to identify a group by, or basically a field or group that you're going to use as a group, and then a calculation. For each group, what are you presenting? What is it that you're presenting? For each group, I'm trying to show the average. I'm trying to show the total number of records, or showing the total revenue. So that's what we will see in every total query. And these keywords, okay, these keywords should kind of help you to identify and distinguish whether a query is a total query or not. If you identify per each, for each customer, for each group, for each city, for each state, or per state, that keyword, usually after that, that's the what you're using as a group in the total query. And then for each group, what? Usually there is a what part. That's the what part. That's the calculation part. That calculation part, if these two exist, that's a total query. How do we create a total query in Access? In Access, open this, where we go and create a new query. We see field, table, sort, show, criteria, and row. This is where we are building a regular query. It's not a total query. If you look at the query, read the query, and say, okay, this is a total query, then you need to click here in the totals. Do you see that sigma here? In once you create a query in you will see in the top panel, you click on the total. That's when you see a new row appear here. Total row. Just under the tables row. Here on the table row, you will see a total row. Exactly below the table. So you will see a total row, and that's the sigma. If you click again on the sigma, again it will disappear. So if you want it to appear, you need to click on sigma here, or just close it. Once you click on total row, these are the values that exist. You can't type anything. You just need to select one of them. One of them, one option you have is a group by. That group by is the one looking at the query. You will find that this is the one that I'm going to use as a group. So we select the columns and specify them as group. And then you will see the aggregations sum, average, mean, max. This is the one that you identify and say, okay, average total revenue. So I have the revenue, and then use the select average. In the total row, I will select the average, or I will select sum to add up all the revenue. We also have a var keyword here. We'll talk about it just in a few minutes. So that's how if we identify say like a total query, so first we start with adding that to the GUI. Then focusing on, okay, how do I identify what is the group? Looking at the query again, comparing the queries, you will see the patterns here. In the top like queries, show reservations for all customers. Which customers rented my Bike Mountains? You don't see like a group. You don't see any calculation that is asked for a specific group. But here we can see that calculate total revenue per customer, or find the average rental cost for each bike type. So for each bike type, I want to calculate something. I want to like summarize them. Say for each bike type, show me the like the number of records. So like count how many reservations do I have. Usually like they appear after these like keywords like pair, each, and that's the part that you identify. This is the category. This is the category I'm using. We'll use that in the access and it's specified as group by. Sometimes like you identify, okay, customer, like for each customer, that tells you for like you're using customer as a way to group by the results. But that doesn't tell you if like specifically which columns you're going to use. That's when you need to like look at the rest of the query. It says, for example, for each customer, show the reserve, like count the number of reservations for each customer. Display for each customer, customer ID, first name and last name. So it tells you these three are specified as a group by. All three of them are like the way that we represent that category, the group customer. We identify customer is the one that we're going to group the result, so we will use it. Aggregation part. You want to look for these aggregations in the query to see if you find those words like calculate total revenue, find average total revenue, the number of reservations, right? The number of reservations for each city. That means like counting the number of reservations for each city. Maximum rental duration per bike type. So I have a group and I have to like look at multiple records to be able to identify which one is the maximum. I can't just like list them, right? I have to do some comparison. And that tells me this is a total query. It's not just a regular query to just like list the results and show them. So for numeric types, like for the cost, for duration, for quantity, for price, we use sum and average. For count, it's like usually number of transactions. Like for example, number of transactions, number of reservations, number of records. If you count, like you want to get the number of records for a particular group, we use count. One common like mistake, maybe like just not paying attention here is like we see that like we use count and sum instead. Instead of like using sum, we use count. For example, like quantity. If I tell you show me the total quantity, you can't count them. You shouldn't use count. You should use sum. If I ask you to show me total revenue, use sum, not count. This is a very common mistake that like I've seen in many like submissions. Just paying attention, like what is the field that you're using and like what is the calculation correct for that. Count usually like you don't count the number of like for example quantity. What does it like? We don't count the quantity, right? We sum them up, say what is the total quantity for each car in this like factory. For looking at the factory and we want to see how many like cars we have, or like in a rental station, want to see how many number of like cars we have for a particular brand. We count them. Where section? Here in the total row, there is one which is the where section. like where. When do we use that one? Is one we use it for filtering the results. So every query, every total query has to have two important components. Every one of them, a total query, has to have a group by, and then that group you're using as a group by, and then aggregation part, which indicates like it's the maximum, minimum, average, or any other like method that you're using for that category. Then you might like be seeing like calculate total revenue per customer for customers from Texas. So we are looking for each customer calculating total revenue for only the customers from Texas. That part is just to specifically looking for something. So we want to filter the results for that, like the state of Texas. That's when that becomes like we specified as a var. If it's not like the one that you use for grouping the results, if you did, it's not the one that you use for aggregation, you still like need to add a column. That's the one that will be specified as var. Why do we need to specify as var? Because it knows that you need to use it as a filter and you shouldn't show it in the output table. Once you specify a field as a var in the total row, it will hide it from the results. Like determine maximum rental duration per bike for electric bike only. So it only does it for one particular bike type. Kind of like see that pattern of like keyboard for, like after that kind of like gives you that like field or fields that you want to use only like to filter the results. You might have other like ways to filter the results. Let's say like if I ask you to only like show me the results for a specific customer, then that like everything else always comes in the criteria row. Whatever specific like result filter result you want to apply, you want to add it in the criteria row. Okay, let's look at this example here. We were talking about this table. So we have the customer table, we have the bike table, and also we have the reservation table. We have total cost, customer ID, bike ID, rental ID. If I ask you, find the total rental cost spent by each customer, for each customer, per each customer, right? These things give you an idea. So what is the, like, is it a total query? Yes. We are trying to calculate total rental cost for each customer. So we want to like group the results or the data, and then for each group, we want to do a calculation. This tells me this is a total query. What is the group by? Customer. The group by is a customer, but then you need to look at it and see which one for each customer, what you're going to show in the output table. And each one of them should be assigned with a group by. In this case, like customer ID, first name and last name, these come from about the customer. Each one of them represent the customer. So these are like as like our group by. And then what is the calculation? Sum. Summing total cost. Total rental cost of sum. And then this should be our like output table. For each customer, now we can see the total cost. Not total cost. So how did we do this? We looked at the reservation table for each customer. We had the customer ID, right? Here is customer ID, the foreign key. For each one of these foreign keys, looked at it and said, I have 3 records. I have this, for example, for this customer with the customer ID 501. I have 3 of them. I need to add total cost here to this one, and then also this one to be able to calculate the total cost for that specific customer, and then show it in the output table. That's how we're able to produce this output table. one thing very clear about a total query. One thing about the total query result to make sure that you created this query result correctly. What is it? For each group, you will only see one record. For each group, you will see one record. Like customer ID, for each group, for each customer, there's only one record. For each customer, one record. Even if I didn't like it, before even I created this, the query says for each customer, show me the total revenue cost. So how many records will I have in the output table? I know already because I know how many customers I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 customers. So my output table should only have 6 tables, 6 rows, sorry, 6 rows. Because we are saying for each customer, count the total, like show me the total cost. It cannot be more than that. We only have one record for each one of them. If I, in this case, that should be it. And then we can see which tables we use. How about this one? Find the average rental cost for each bike type. Before looking at it, I can look at the bike type. How many bike type I have? I have one electric, road, and mountain. So my result table is going to have how many records? 3. I have 3 of them only. So for each bike type, so for each one of them, only for 3 of them. Now look at the reservations. How do we do that? Like we will look at use the bike ID, which links bike table to the reservation table, and then do that calculation. Say, okay, for each bike, average rental cost. Average rental cost. For I look at the bikes link like have that their bike type was road, and then take the like average of the rental cost for them, and then I'll show it here. Then I say when the rental duration was greater than 2 hours. You see, I don't see the rental duration here in the output table because it's the total query, and that rental duration only used to filter the results. And before doing this calculation, it's already been applied and it's hidden because it is not something that we are going to show. And like we'll see in access that once we specify something as a var, it will only used as a as a filter, and it doesn't like appear in the output table. Count how many reservations each customer made for completed reservations only. Again, how many records will I have? Like 5, 6. For each customer, we'll have 1 record. Should I add 1 more record here because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me see how many customers we have. There is 1 customer that don't have a reservations. We should have had it here as well to just say no records. For each customer, we should count them. For each customer, what we see is a total reservations. How did we do that? We looked at this table and counted how many records we have for each customer. So 5 or 1, 1, 2, and 3. I have 3 records here. I have 3 records in the reservation table, and that's the result. Like the result of this calculation shows me for that customer, I have 3 records. Counting the records. Usually, with the count, when you want to count the records of a table, let's say how many reservations exist for like a customer, or like how many like reservations exist for each city. Usually use the primary key of the table we use to count the records. Like in this case, we're counting the records in the reservation table, right? So we use the reservation ID to count them. You can use any columns on that table, but the common method is that we use the primary key of the table we use to count the records. Here, if I want to say count the number of reservations, I use reservation, I say count reservation ID for each customer. Great. Any question? Okay. let's do this query. Now let's start with the query and actually see how it works. We are using the same data set that we used like last session, like the same database. We want to create a new query. Okay, query design, create like a new query. Create a query that displays average of sales prices for properties in each town. So what we are looking for, average of sales prices in each town. What is my category here? What is the category? What is calculation? Town, what is the calculation? Exactly. So for each town, average of sales prices. This one is the group by township. Show me the average. So which tables we are going to use to pull the data? Like the average sales price, like the sales price. We don't have the average. We have sales prices for each listing, right? We have the sales price. For each record in the listing table, you have the sales price. You have the table that indicates the township. Okay, if I double click on township to see what is the township, you see for each township, this is a query, this is a total query, so I need to add the totals. Add the totals here on the query design tab. Click on totals so we can see the total row here. So we see the total row. Now, for each township, what should I show for the township? I identified the township is the group, but let me double click and see, like it says for township, for like in the output table, show me the township ID and township. So both of them will be specified as primary, like as group by. In this case, it didn't indicate it, so I just said township. So I will just use that township here. Basically, it meant to name the name of it, township. And you double click it, and like you see that automatically adds as a group by. For each one of them, it will add group by. So it shouldn't confuse you. It doesn't know anything, like know that like this is a group by or not. It just automatically adds it. You have to check it and see which one is a group by, which one is the other things. So in this case, I already know this township is the group by. Group by township. So I select group by township what? I have the sales price for each record. So for each township, I can go to the listing table, find the listings that are linked to this township, and take the average. So here in the total row, I specify that you're going to use this column, the sales price column, and do this aggregation for each group, for each township, take the average. For each average of sales price. So group by township, average sales price. If I run it, I can see that for each group, I have a record. For each township, I have one record. The table for each township, it shows only one record. Set like group by township and then show us the average sales price. Now, we want to take a few more steps to kind of like provide a like more meaningful result here. Okay, the first thing I will do is for the average for the sales price, I will add greater than 0. So it only like shows the average sales price is greater than 0. So you see, if you're like applying after doing that, then you want to think about like you want to check the query and see if you need to apply different like filters. Like it says, hey, only show the results for this specific township. That's the one that you will put under by group by township in the criteria row. Criteria row, as a reminder, criteria row is not for adding any formula or anything, just exactly specifying a value. You're filtering this column for this specific thing. List price exactly greater than 0. I don't add any formula in this row. Field row is where we add the formula. Just keep that in mind. So greater than 0. So for now it only shows the ones that average sales price greater than 0. The next thing from last session, remember, click right on the column, like cell, click right on the fields row, and then click on properties. Why? Because sales price is a monetary value, so we can, like, we need to specify, like, we change the format to currency, so it shows up as a currency. So click right, click on properties. Okay, click right, click on properties, and change the format to currency. Click right, click on properties, and from here, property sheet, from the format, you select currency. Once you select it, it will automatically save it. Okay, this time when I run it, it shows me the average sales price for each period in terms of a currency. Now, okay, it says the township names that begin with D, like, only show the results like in, like, the township name begins with D. Where should I place that? In the criteria row, right? So in the criteria row, any field where do I have the township, I'm gonna specify that. So if you remember from that session, like, if you wanted to say this, like, a name, it starts with this or ends with this, you use the like keyword, right? Like, in under township, I will type like. Inside the quotation, like inside double quotation, I say it starts with D. So D and then a star, and then D a star, and then quotation. Okay, like this one. It's not clear, but like, inside quotation, D, and then a star. It means it starts with D. It starts with that, like, a word or character. If you place a star before it, it means it ends with that. Okay. So here we are saying only show the townships that start with D. That's why now if we, like, run the query, we only see the townships like they start with their, like, the name starts with D. Listed after July 1st, 2016. Listed after. So what we are looking for, which column should I, which field should I add to this, like, to list? Which field should I add from the table? Listed date, right? Date listed. Date listed. Right? It's looking for listed after this. So I'm looking for date listed. You see, once you add it, again, it automatically adds group by, but we know this is not a group by. We are not grouping based on the date. What are we using this field now? Is it aggregation? No, we did the aggregation before. Is it the group by? No, we already specified the column that we're using for group by. So if it is not any of them, it's the where section that you apply using that column as a way to filter the results. So that should be like, okay, where dates listed is, look at this group by township, average sales prices, where dates listed is like after greater than 6/1/2016. So that 6/1/2016. The same way here. You see, once you choose where, it automatically hides it because it knows this is a column which is used to, like, filter the results, but it's not supposed to be shown in the output table. We only want the group. We want to see for each group what is the result of that aggregation. 7. I put the like in the criteria row, I only have values. Now, like this is the output table, just like having those like filters applied. Good. One more thing I want to like talk about here is that like you see here, I added the sales price and like average listing. So we take the average, right? Once I run the query, like every column of a table should have a name. And you can see that it automatically adds a name to that column. Average of sales prices. It's no longer sales price, it's the average of sales prices. If you want to, or if you're asked to change the name of the field, change the name or set a name for that column, a specific name, that's how we are going to do this. So click right, the same way that you would go to like create a new field. So click right on the field itself and click on build. Click right on the field itself and then click on build. There are two ways you can do this. First, the one way is like go back to like just before sales price and type the name of the column you want to set, what name you want to set it. I will type average sales, okay, average sales, and then add the column. Average sales immediately after the column, and then sales. Just again, so I type average sales and then colon, and then after that I have the cells. This is how it looks like here. That way, and then click OK. This time, like you see now with the name is like shown as the way that you like specified it. The column has your specified name. So this was how it looks like. If like the other way, you can also like you can also do this. I think like just if you have it, I will just say average sales price again. Go back and start from the beginning, like average sales price. I will find the sales price from here. Okay. Oh, I double clicked it. Let's see if it works. Sales. Okay, and then remove the expression, and that's it. To give us the same result. So just in case you prefer that version. One thing, like when you're doing this, like sometimes you might notice that instead of the average or like average word like in the aggregation column, instead of the average, you might see an expression type, like showed an expression, and like in this part has been changed. Don't worry, both of them are correct. It automatically sometimes changes like the expression part and like shows it in that way. But that should be it for like creating like a total query. Okay, so that's how we were able to create this total query that like looks at like for each town creates the average sales prices, and then we apply that. So we learned about group by, we learned about the aggregation, and then if we have filters besides this, we can apply that using the where row. Um, we'll talk about the next query next session. You can check it out, maybe just do it after class, kind of like review it, but still we will do that next session since in the last session I also finished here. Okay, let me stop this.